Hey everyone, hi, welcome back to my channel. Today you were sitting with me at my kitchen counter, and I'm here because I have to admit that I've been having this feeling that I am having the worst reading year ever. It's just a feeling, and I'm actually planning to disprove that feeling to myself with you right now. So, my plan is to rank all of the books that I've read this year. Now, I know that there's some really cool tier ranking stuff, but sometimes I just want to write things down, and I thought paper and pencil will be a lot more tactile and grounded for me. And so I'm actually going to be writing down tier ranking style, writing down and ranking. I already said that. I'm going to be writing and ranking all of the books that I've read this year. So if you are new to my channel, then hi, welcome. Every once in a while I throw in an overhead video like this, and this is indeed one of them. Most of the time I do a talking heads style video, but regardless of what style of video, I'm often, if not almost always, talking about books and reading and my reading life. And so this is very emblematic topically. This is very emblematic of my channel. If you like this video and you'd like to subscribe, I would encourage you to do so. And without any further rambling on, let's go ahead and get into the meat of this video. You may hear a little bit of background noise, but that is my kids, because again, we're sitting together at my kitchen counter. And here is the pre-made tier lists that I wrote down. So at the very top, I have Heart Eyes, meaning that it's my favorite. I love the book so much that it actually turns my eyes into hearts, like the emoji, the heart eye emoji. And then I have Good. I have the category Solid. I wanted to make a distinction between a favorite book, a book that was good but didn't make it into my favorites, and a solid book, meaning that maybe for other people it would be good, but for me it was just okay or fine. And then we're kind of getting into like the lower tiers, the bad things. I have Meh, which is like it was, it was all right, not good, and then awful. Like I actively disliked it. So anyways, those are my categories. So let's get started. I'm actually going to start with the book that I read first, or I'm going to rank them in terms of what I read in January up to present day. I'm going the furthest back and working my way to present day. Oh my goodness. Shelly, you're probably more than clear. I'm also going to rank the manga that I read, but I'm going to count it as one thing. I'm going to count it as one item. Actually, right before I start ranking my items, I had read a couple of books that I didn't love in a row, and I was just having this feeling that I've been picking duds. Like the books I've been reading are just not great. And I don't believe that in the deepest part of myself. I don't believe that. However, I sometimes just have a feeling, and sometimes in that feeling, it can kind of grow and get in and amongst me, and it can really brew some discontent in my life. I don't want that to happen, so I'm battling that by doing this. And so I really think that actually, when I think about it logically, I think most of my books are going to actually land in this top half of the page. And the books that I didn't get along with are going to land in this lower half. But as I go through this, I know that the picture will become more and more clear, and it will feel more and more true. So if you're having a similar feeling about the books that you're reading, or you wanted to do something similar, like to prove or to disprove something in your heart, then I would encourage you to do something like this. Take a paper and pencil. It doesn't have to be all like this. It could literally just be a paper and a pencil and yourself, and writing down a list or to rank things, whether it be first to worst, just to kind of get right with yourself. Okay, I'm gonna actually start ranking books. To no surprise, one of the first things I read this year was One Piece by Arichiro Oda. It's been a huge, manga has been a huge piece of my reading life thus far, and very thankfully it ranks at the top. It is a heart eyes type of read. All right, One Piece. Now, next we have 84 Charing Cross Road. This was a reread for me, and I love this book. I wouldn't have reread it if I didn't love it. I am actually going to put a little bullet so it can help me separate and see things. The first book I did not like, which was The Fraud by Zadie Smith. I thought it was just all over the place. As much as I thought there was so many good things within it, like the writing was really interesting, and actually the way that she structured some of the book was really interesting. There was like super short chapters and it felt really pacey, and that was it. Kind of in the it juxtaposed the feeling of, it juxtaposed the slow lifestyle of the Victorian era. And I thought that was really smart to have that contrast. I felt like I was reading from a really smart author, but I didn't care for the book. Weirdly, it's hard for me to put it way down here because it wasn't offensive, and I didn't feel like she was writing, I didn't feel like she was talking down to me or being condescending. I just feel like it kind of was a mess, a hot mess, and it went all over the place, in spite of having some really good and interesting pieces to it. Okay, so I'm gonna put it in meh. Ooh, next we have Spy Family. I really like Spy Family, but weirdly, because of some time constraints, I have not picked it up in a while, and I think for that reason, because I've been taking such a long break from Spy Family, it has to go in good. Ooh, similarly, I have Death Note, Volume 1. Death Note just in general. I read the first volume. Again, it's a good read, but I read to a natural stopping point, and then I just have not picked it up. A lot of that is a time constraint for me. So I think for me, it's gonna go in solid. Oh, let me put my little bullet points in. Next up, I have a Linley book. It's an Elizabeth George mystery. She has one long mystery series that she's written for the vast majority of her career. She's rarely veered from that one series mystery. Okay, that's what I'm trying to say. And I read book 6 called For the Sake of Elena, For the Sake of Elena. And I really liked that book, so I'm gonna put it in good. It was a good book. Ooh, next up was another reread for me. And this was an interesting reread because it is Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. And in a lot of ways, the book so held up under the scrutiny of a reread. In a reread, nothing essentially is a surprise. And actually, I could see the glaring flaw in Jane Eyre that I hadn't seen before on the first read. Something happens in like the latter half of the book that feels a bit like a misstep. Actually, it's not even a bit. It feels like quite the misstep. And I could see it. And even in spite of seeing a flaw that to me was glaring, I still have heart eyes for it. So it's gonna go under heart eyes. All right, next up, I read a nonfiction book, and it was called After the Romanovs by Helen Rappaport. This was an incredible book. It starts off at the Belle Epoque era, and it goes through the Russian Revolution until right at the tail end of the Russian Revolution, and it was fascinating. It spoke about Russian expats living in France, and it was awesome. So I'm gonna go with Heart Eyes. I really love that book. Ooh, next up we have Berserk. And again, it's falling into the pattern of Spy Family and Death Note in that I started it and I liked it. I thought it was going somewhere and I wanted to see where that somewhere was going to be, but it just, I set it aside mostly because of timing reasons, and I haven't picked it up again. So actually, I'm gonna put it in solid because as much as I like it and I like the art, I don't think it really has me in its grips. Like, I'm not loving it. Next up is The Passion by Jeanette Winterson. Interestingly, this was my first Winterson. I own 2 books by this author and have been curious about her for years. And I quite liked it. I thought it was very, very magical. And I still think about some of the scenes today. Look at my little voices. I still think about some of the scenes today. All right, next up is Northwoods by Daniel Mason. I liked this book more than I thought I would. It was different. It read a bit like interconnected short stories, though some would argue and say that it read more like a novel in sort of different vignettes almost. And I liked it, but I have not thought about the book since having read it. None of the scenes stand out. I just don't think about it. So I'm gonna put it in solid. Finally, a classic I had meant to get to for years, which is Sylvia Plath's The Bell Jar. This is an interesting book, and it actually provides an odd conundrum for me, is that as a book that documents the way that we treated those with severe depression, especially women with severe depression during the 1950s I thought it was very interesting and a really fascinating glimpse into Sylvia Plath and her life because it's semi-autobiographical. But as a novel, it did not come together for me. So it's like, yeah, I thought it was fine. So it was solid. All right, another Elizabeth George book, and it is Playing for the Ashes. I liked it. It was not nearly as good as For the Sake of Elena, and for that reason, it's going to go into solid. I am surprised at how many books I thought were solid. They were good. They were fine. Solid could also be fine. That's interesting. Maybe we're seeing the heart of the problem with this list, is that I'm reading a lot of perhaps what I would consider a 3.5, star rating, a 3. It's not quite a 3, but it's not quite a 3. It's not a 4. It's right there where it's not offensive, but it's not blowing me away. It's really good in some aspects, but it definitely isn't perfect, and those flaws are kind of glaring. So, The reason why I bring this up is because my next book falls in this category as well, and in the solid, I'll just tell you that, and it's Behind the Scenes at the Museum, which I thought was solid. I love Kate Atkinson, and I love the way she writes, but that book had a really slumpy middle that it was painful to get through at parts, and so, oh my goodness. So it's gonna be another solid book. I need to separate the categories, and so I'm actually going to use a marker to help kind of separate out my categories right here. And we'll say right here. Next up, we have In Memoriam by Alice Wynne, which is one of my favorite books I've read thus far this year, and so it's definitely going up the tippy top. A Peculiar Combination is next, which is a murder mystery by Ashley Weaver. And I quite liked this. I want to read the next one in the series. They're very much kind of cozy, character-driven mysteries with a lot of spunk, I would say. My final Elizabeth George that you're going to see in this video, which is In the Presence of the Enemy, which almost was a Heart Eyes type book because it was so good. It had such an unlikable character in it. There was so much that was like conflicting and a lot to think about. And ultimately, it really fell apart at the end. She really like took it just somewhere else. I did not like it. And so I think it's going to be, I mean, the misstep was in some ways egregious. And so I'm going to say that it actually makes it into solid, which is going to be right here. And I'm going to start to overlap. All right, next up is Burial Rites by Hannah Kent. And this was one where I really had to kind of check myself because in my heart, I was wanting to put it under Heart Eyes. But I don't know if it really makes it into that category because even though it was really good, I don't know. Even though it was really, what am I trying to say? Even though it was really good, I don't think I love it as much as the ones at the very top. And so I'm going to actually put it in good. Ooh, another mystery. I've had a lot of really good mysteries this year, and it is The Likeness by Tana French. This was a book I actually DNF'd 8 years ago. I started it and DNF'd it 8 years ago, and this was my second try, and I love that book. It really came together. I thought it was incredible, and actually it's gonna go under Heart Eyes. My handwriting is getting a little messy. I read a middle grade novel, or like an elementary school novel. I don't know. It was good. It was called Sarah Plainenthal by Patricia McLaughlin. I had heard such good things about it that I actually think my expectations were out of proportion with reality, and so to me it was just a solid read. Okay, now we're getting into the books that put me kind of in a bad mood, and one of which is Ordinary Human Failings. Now, I read this with Hannah at Hello Bookworm. She's incredible. She's so wonderful. I really enjoyed emailing back and forth with her about her thoughts and what was, how she was processing the book. But to me, it was kind of all over the place and didn't come together for me at the end. It really undersold on its promise of what I thought it was going to be. And I just didn't like it. So I'm actually going to put it in not good. All right, I have only a couple of books left. One of which is Tana French's The Searcher, which I quite liked. It's not quite the same as The Likeness, but it's going to be under good. Another book that I just despise, and it's going to be down here, way down here, because I really, really disliked it. I thought it was awful. And it was actually Victor Laval's Lone Women. I thought so much of it was awful. I didn't like the writing. I liked the main character actually, but I didn't like the story. I didn't like the mystery. I didn't like pretty much anything about it. So it's gonna go down way down here. And then my final book is actually Factory Girls by Michelle Gallen, which is it's a bit of a coming of age story about a sassy, loudmouth young lady named Maeve and her friends who are about to either go to college or start their working life in Northern Ireland during the Troubles. And I really liked the book. I thought it was really good. I don't think it makes the tippy top, but it does make this. So it does make good. It makes this category. So I'm gonna say Factory Girls. Really funny too. Like, it was a really funny book. Unexpectedly so. Okay, so what is our total? So here's what I have come to realize. There are 6 incredible books. Now, of course, 2 of these are a reread. So 4 of the reads are new to me. And for reading for about a month and a half. For reading about, what am I saying? For reading about a quarter of the year thus far, I wish there was a few more titles. So, these are the 84 Charing Cross Road is the reread, and so is Jane Eyre. And so, it's, I want to discover new favorites. And though that's not my main goal or anything, but, I wish there was a few more up there. There are some really good books, and I think these are the ones that I tend to not think about. These are the ones that I eliminate from my mind when I'm really starting to feel sorry for myself and I'm starting to wallow and say I'm having a terrible reading year. And I have to be like, no, you really love Spy Family, and For the Sake of Elena, and The Passion, and A Peculiar Combination, and Burial Rites, and The Searcher and Factory Girls. Like, these are really good books. They're really good books. And on a different day or in a different year or for a different reader, these could easily be like your heart-eye books. And actually, that could be true for any of these, but this is just like me on a different year. These could be like the ones that I have at the top category. It's just a lot of it is so contextual and, who I am as a reader and when I'm reading it and all of that. So I think I need to remember this section a bit more when I'm starting to wallow. Then I think this is actually the contributing factor right here. This is the contributing factor to my not sadness, but like to me feeling like, oh no, it's just okay. It's because I can appreciate, sort of logically, I can appreciate what all of these are doing. And some of these have really great scenes and momentum. These two in particular, like the Elizabeth George books, she's got shining, like amazing character development. She has beautiful, like through lines. It's such a joy to read something from her because she's such a good character-driven author that it makes me really love her mysteries. But there were things about both of these where the mystery themselves kind of they get away from her, and it renders it to be a read that I enjoyed, but I'm kind of not mad, that's too strong of a word. I'm kind of irritated that she couldn't tie it all together, So these, it's kind of weird to place them in the solid category, even though her series is my favorite mystery series of all time. And then it's like, I just wanted more from some of these, like Behind the Scenes at the Museum. I really wanted more from Sarah Plainenthal. I wanted more from The Bell Jar and Northwoods. Like, I just wanted more from them, and they didn't deliver what I wanted. So this I think is a contributing factor to why I'm often feeling like I'm having a terrible reading year, even though clearly I am not. And then the books that, when I'm really starting to feel sorry for myself, the books I tend to focus on are these three, which, they don't make up the bulk of my reading, clearly. And for the most part, I'm pretty good at choosing reads that I'm going to like, clearly. These are all successful reads. I'm not mad that I read any of this from here up. I'm not mad that I read them. So I need to remember the top half of this list when I start to wallow, and remember all of the good things that I've read this year. And now I have this list to look back on. So so that's it for me. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. And I will see you all in my next one. Bye.